So the FAA hired gamers as air traffic controllers, which I think is like super interesting to think about how for two reasons. One is this whole idea that like, video gaming was, meant to be this like I don't know, this thing that like our parents tried to like get us to not do. And here we go where it become like a way to get a job because of the skills that you developed being a gamer. And I think it's also a way of showing that like thinking about skills and like upskilling and transferring those into a context that actually makes sense when you are open to like ideas, right? So, we do have to give a shout out here to Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy, who used a recruiting video to target video gamers directly in order to get to their hiring goal of hiring more than 2,000 air traffic controllers and having 2,000 more in the pipeline. Because I mean, as of a couple months ago, we were hearing that like there weren't enough people coming up through the air traffic controller pipeline or who had the skills or wanted to learn because people just didn't think of that as a job. And so they used and so they learn when they learned, sorry. And so when they learned that gamers had the skills that they needed, they went directly to go target them. And here we are with, this like success story. And I think that this is such a good story to think about in the context of AI that we were talking about earlier. Cause like, what are these skills, these baseline skills that you can take that people are investing in, on their own time, right? Usually you're gaming as like a hobby. It's not like you're on Twitch streaming or something. And then take those skills and put them into a context that like actually works for the job that needs to be done. So I'm seeing both sides where, some of the replies are like super impressed that they have been able to do this. And other ones are terrified because it's like, are we really giving, gamers these like jobs that are like meant to be, important? But I think it was like really interesting because a lot of what the narrative was saying is that the reason why gamers are so good at this is because they can make quick decisions and they're able to like see things in a variety of contexts that like don't that usually most people don't have to like think about, right? Whereas like, when you think about what it requires to be an air controller, it's like, oh yeah, the overlap makes sense
Yeah,
of
yeah.
like, what it is that they do. So have you seen this, Jonathan? Would love to hear your thoughts.
Well, this is another, I think, just great example of what would be a forum and an analogy to marketing myopia versus job to be done. Like, what are the
Mhm,
product features of candidates? Right? We often think about their features as the bachelor's degree and the GPA that they got.
mhm,
But would you want the star athlete who did great in college to be an air traffic controller if they can't stand sitting around and staring at a screen for 8 hours a day? Right? Like,
yeah,
what actually is the job to be done? And I
yeah.
played a lot of video games growing up, and my parents and I actually always joked about how it made me so good at some of the things that I am good at
Mhm.
because it taught, critical thinking, solving puzzles, hand-eye coordination, and bringing along these other soft features of for an air traffic controller, again, the capacity to sit in front of a screen for a long time while still maintaining focus and making important decisions. I mean, that really is a clever and perfect fit, I think.
Mhm, mhm, mhm. Yeah, I think another thing here too is how often we hear how difficult it is for government agencies to hire people and
Mhm.
how long it takes um, because there's so many hoops that you have to jump through. You have to get your profiles to be written in a way that makes sense for like government jobs as opposed to other jobs that you're applying for. So it seems as this like kind of bypass that by um targeting the skills that they need most, spatial reasoning and split attention skills that the job actually requires, and going direct to an audience that already has that. So I think, it's super interesting as a marketing campaign to think about what are these types of distribution channels that we have or that we can look for, that will help us target our audience a little bit better than trying to, spray and pray, right? Which never really works. So I think that's like, an interesting thing. And it's a rare example of the government, matching the job requirements to a non-obvious talent pool. And it's funny because we've talked about this, not talked about this, but I've seen these stories in terms of like, gamers helping out with like the military. But this, seems far, without this having to be like they're, out there, using drones or whatever, which also is specialized skills. You don't have to sign up to go to the military. You can just be an air traffic controller, right? So I think this is a really cool way to, get in front of people that you necessarily wouldn't have otherwise, and recognizing, how skilled, these people actually are. And yeah, I don't get, it gives me hope for the future, where it's like, are there other examples that we could be doing this for that we're just not seeing, because we're, thinking too narrowly or have like blinders on about, skills and stuff.
Right. And again, bringing it back to the very beginning, AI and some of the fears of it taking people's jobs. Are we as a society just not creative enough to find the right kinds of jobs for the right kinds of people who actually would really benefit from a change in what they're currently doing? And
Hmm.
so it's another reason to be optimistic if we only had the creativity and the optimism to find, the roles that bring life to us that add value to the world as well.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Just thinking about it in the context of AI, where it's like, this would be kind of a use case to use for AI, where it's like we kind of dissect down to like the marrow the actual important skills that we need for particular jobs, and then cross, research other jobs that have similar requirements, and then use that to then go and like target, right? I often think about how this whole idea of we need to retrain, people to like have the skills that we need them for, in this like digital economy. And sometimes it's easier to go to places that are already interested in that, right? They already have those, they've built it up themselves because they've been, naturally curious about it because they're gamers. And look, what a great fit that is. And like, what other examples are there that, could be done in this way, using AI? Both in terms of just regular jobs that already exist, but then also in thinking about new ways that we could be using AI to help us. And then the human AI, pairing up to enhance both abilities.